Колеги, продовжуємо нашу серію прес-брифінгів. І зараз про кривосуддя під час Революції Гідності, вирок громадськості. Ми говоримо з Олександрою Матвійчук, головою правління Центру громадянських свобод.
We're talking to Oleksandr Matviychuk, head of the Center for Civil Liberties, EuroMaidan son, Stepan Berko, who is an expert of Ukrainian Law Foundation, and Markiyan Galabala, who is deputy head of the Temporary Special Commission for the Inspection of Judges, and Serhiy Nushnenko, the man who was beaten during the events in Bankovo. Good afternoon. I am Oleksandr Matviychuk. I represent the Ozone group of civic observation monitoring, which was created long before Maidan to control the actions of law enforcers during peaceful gatherings. And when we saw that such people are being taken to courts and blamed and accused of mass disturbances, it was very natural that we opened a new direction of our work, monitoring of court procedures involving participants at EuroMaidan. Here you can see a bit of statistics and the detentions. According to official data, there were 400 detained people in Kiev. These are the data from EuroMaidan SOS Center, and those were both administrative and criminal cases. You see that during the mass detentions on the 19th and 23rd of January, 86 people found themselves in courts. In Kiev, there were 245 court sessions. We could not go to every one of them, but we also worked in Cherkasy, Vinnytsia, Lutsk, Kharkiv, and a number of other Ukrainian cities. And as a result of our work, we filled in 93 questionnaires of monitoring, and we saw that the state without independent court is just a gang of robbers, as Augustine said. The first task was to find where the court session is taking place. Very often, the court was one of the first places where you could find your relative or friend after they vanished, or when the EuroMaidan source said that he was or she was detained. You see on these photos how the monitors were met by court's officers, like no entry or entry is banned. They were also, court's sessions were held from 2 to 5 a.m. or during days off, and they had to hold a vigil at the court buildings to detect that the court is taking place. You also see that there was a problem with access to the court and with filming or photographing, and we saw how one of the photographers was just brutally thrown out of court. Also have a look at the physical state of the accused. Quite often it was very heavy. After people were beaten and tortured, they were taken to court sessions, and they were bleeding. There was no doctor, and the judge would not come. But in most of the cases, and we will tell you, they were taken in custody, and you see how people were transported from hospital right to the prison. As volunteers are live people, and they not only observed the court sessions and filled in questionnaires about the violations of processual and material law, they also, it was a rather complicated time. They were doing quite a lot. You see the wife of Dmytro Yurchenko. This is the well-known case of tires, when a person was detained because he had tires in his car boot, and his wife, who was pregnant at the time, who was on maternity leave, she refused material help because until there was a sentence, she believed it was absurd and her husband would be released. However, once she heard that he's been taken into custody for 2 months, she fainted, and you see how the medics that we called there are helping this woman. This is a happy end story, however, because some concerned people came and supported her materially, but one of the non-typical functions that our monitors performed was also the cooperation with those who sent food and other necessary stuff to prison. They involved volunteers and our Ozon volunteers, talking to lawyers and suspects in court sessions, got to know about the needs of imprisoned, and then people were given what they needed. Who are our volunteers of the public monitoring group Ozon? Those are just normal people, not lawyers, different age, different gender, very, very different people, and united with the desire not to stand aside during the critical times, and they joined our group in order to help the accused participants of EuroMaidan. Lilia Nauchuk here, a young mother who was monitoring the courts, on the lawyer Viktor Smoly, whom you see behind the bars. He is one of the lawyers who defended the beaten students on the 30th of November. Lilia Nauchuk at the moment is monitoring the court process on Nadia Savchenko. She takes part in monitoring and trips to Russian Federation. And Lila has a 4-year-old son, and when mom was telling him why she spends so little time with her son, she said that this man has little children and he has no opportunity to see them. So this 4-year-old boy sent one of the toys as a present to Viktor Smoly. So Viktor Smoly, come and get your present. And this is another photo to call you all to join the public group of monitors Ozon. It says, prosecutors and policemen, tomorrow you'll be under in the court, and this is what we are now doing. We have switched on the monitoring of court processes on those who are accused on beating and killing peaceful protesters during Maidan, and we are remembering those events that have fallen into background because of the war in the East. But although every day we see new victims of this war, we should not forget about those times, because those who do not history have to repeat it. And that one of the main lessons that we as a group took from this entire story, it is, of course, the Heavenly 100 are heroes, but you cannot only depend on heroes. Everybody should give shoulder that the civil society can lean upon. That's why we continue to work in the court system, so that we change the situation with specific small actions and to provide for the right to justice in our society. We also control local authorities. The head of the group is here in the audience. We will be glad if you join us. Good afternoon. I am Sergei Nuzhnenko. I'm one of the Bankova prisoners. I'll tell you about my judge. On the 1st of December, I was heavily beaten by police. We were detained, and on the 3rd of December in Shevchenkivsky District Court, there was the first session. We were taken to court at 10 a.m., but the session started only on 7 or 8 p.m., and only at 3 a.m. next morning we were in the hospital. Judge Malinovska, during this session, all the proofs of my innocence were thrown out, and all the suspect proofs of my involvement were taken into account. My first detention lasted for 18 hours by Pechersky District Police, and my second detention was at around 1 a.m. by the investigation department at the ambulance at the urgent medical help hospital, and she did not take into account my 18 hours of detention first time, and she only took into account my second detention. The judge is still in place, and we are demanding that she is removed from her office. Okay, let's listen to lawyers. Stepan Berko. I am an expert of the lawyers who monitored court decisions together with Ozon Group, and as a result of the monitoring, we prepared a report about all the violations that we observed during the monitoring. We monitored 82 court sessions in 63 cases, quite a large number. Of course, we could not go to every court hearing, but even this small part provided results. Of course, the lion's share of these cases happened in Kyiv, so we have most of the results from Kyiv. I emphasize that in spite of the fact that the monitors were without legal education as a rule, before they were involved in the monitoring, they were trained specifically, where they were taught the basics of monitoring and were acquainted with the questionnaire that they had to fill during the monitoring of court hearings. I also want to emphasize that one of the principles of monitoring was non-involvement, non-partisanship of monitors. They had no right to communicate with the sides of the process. They had to silently observe how the court observes the rights and duties of the suspects and other sides of the process. As a result of the monitoring, we discovered several violations that I will brief you on. First, the violation of the right to non-involvement, non-partisanship of the court. Most of the violations were discovered in the Court of Appeal in Kyiv, and 5 judges had the anti-rating. 5 judges were holding 2/3 of EuroMaidan cases. Judge Ivan Betts heard 20 cases, and in all the 20 cases, he decided not to throw the case out of court. He is now under the action of the law on the restoration of trust to the court system, and the special commission will now decide whether he broke his oath. Judge Olga Yefimova, the same Court of Appeal in Kiev, she considered 13 cases, and we found out 13 instances when she broke the rule for the right for just court. Judge Svetlana Koval, together with Mr. Betts and Ms. Yefimova, 12 cases. Ms. Bartashuk, not a very quality photo, because judges want to their identity, they want to hide their identity. She considered 11 cases, and we observed 11 violations. And Judge Prindyuk, we discovered 7 violations, but she's head of the chamber for criminal cases in the Court of Appeal, and we think that she had quite an influence on how the cases were considered against participants of Maidan in the Court of Appeal of the city of Kiev. So this is our anti-rating. The next violation that we discovered was the Territorial Principle. Almost 1/4 of the cases that we monitored were heard in the court that is not responsible for the territory where the case started. Most of the cases had to be considered by Pechersky court, but 1/4 of them were considered in other courts. The third violation is the violation of the right to defense. In almost half of the cases, the suspects could not freely communicate with their lawyers because lawyers were either they were either in cages or the suspects or outside of the court and could only take part through video link. And another point is the presumption of innocence was violated because most of the suspects were in cages. Why this is a violation of the presumption of innocence? Because the court has not yet proven that the accused is guilty, and the presence in cage is the violation of the right to dignity of this person, as they were treated like criminals. So the results of this monitoring, I can show you this pile of paper. These are the appeals that the Ukrainian Lawyers Foundation has prepared. We have discovered 14 judges who only in Kiev violated the right to just court. So we composed appeals to the temporary special commission at the High Council of Justice that looks into the issue of breaking judges' oaths. However, I want to emphasize that not all the court decisions were entered into the state register of court decisions, so we could not find all the decisions that can be the foundation for appeal to the temporary commission. So we call upon everyone who is in possession of any information and has copies of decisions, no matter whether it concerns you or anyone else, please address us, the Ukrainian Legal Foundation, or the Public Monitoring Group Ozone. You can find our contents in Facebook, and you can also address the temporary commission so that all the judges who violated human rights during court hearings on Maidan events, they should bear responsibility, because lack of responsibility leads to repetitious violations of human rights.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to congratulate you with the Lawyer's Day. Being the lawyer, I cannot but mention this holiday. A few words about this special provisional commission on inspecting the judges of general jurisdiction. This commission was set up according to the law of Ukraine, and the necessity to set up such a commission was provided for the fact that the highest qualification commission and the highest council of justice are not efficient, and that is why there was a need to set up such a specialized body. The commission is set up. There are three subjects of forming the commission: the plenum of the highest court, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and the third one. So the Verkhovna Rada has not appointed three of their appointees, and now the commission has 9 members. 5 of them are judges, retired judges. According to the Council of Europe's legislation, such bodies should have minimum judges or retired judges. The commission started its work on the 3rd of July this year. At the first meeting, which was just technical, the commission approved the regulations, appointed the leaders, and now we have 6 months for submitting applications to commission. So applications to inspect judges could be submitted till the 12th of December. Please remember that. On the 24th of September, there was the first meeting of the commission on considering a specific case. In the result, 6 judges, inactions of 6 judges, the commission identified violation of the oath. The inspection was stopped in relation to one judge because the commission recognized that he did not violate the oath. There were cases related to Maidan, the cases related to the prohibition of peaceful meetings. The next meeting of the commission will take place on the 24th of October this year, and they will again consider the different cases. A few words about which cases the commission considers. The list of cases is envisaged by Article 3 of the law of Ukraine on restoration the trust to judges. Our citizens come to us with other cases which are not under this commission. Out of 70 inspections, 70 applications that we received, but we received at the same time 500 which were not in the jurisdiction of that commission, because people believe that we inspect all different cases. And this fact means that the citizens are critically not satisfied with the judicial system. They complain at actions of the judges, but the commission cannot always help them. Also, I would like to emphasize that the materials of the inspections where the violation of the oath was identified are then submitted to the highest council of justice, and the highest council of justice passes the ruling on whether the oath was violated, then it's submitted to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Then the Verkhovna Rada has to pass a decision on resignation of the judge, on dismissing the judge. The judges are very much protected at the constitutional level. To dismiss a judge, for that you have to pass many stages, and that creates many obstacles, and that creates certain psychological preconditions for judges. They feel that they cannot be punished. The judge should be independent. There should be guarantees of independence provided, but in Ukraine this procedure is non-efficient. As we know, this highest council of justice is not operating now, and all the materials which the Commission submits to the highest council of justice, they are still there, and then basically the problem arises. There's a presumption of innocence, but if said a violation is established, then such judge probably should be not dismissed but removed from exercising justice for the time of inspection, because there are some reasons for that. Questions? The head of Zaporizhzhia Sich and Maidan, participant of EuroMaidan, the question: have you established some civil servants who were issuing orders to the judges? And the second question: I'm the representative of Zaporizhzhia region, and there was a case of banned soul. These were the guys who have beaten the MP from the Party of Regions, and for a week they were put, during a week they were put in detention facility, and they are still in detention facility. What do we do with that? I'm trying to liberate these guys from there, because that was just a regular, just one of the cases that you are working on. But we could not change the situation. Our region is quite special. About 60% are for the other side, and the guys are still in detention. Your first question was? The second question, unfortunately, okay, I will start from the end. Unfortunately, there are no other mechanisms of liberating people who you mentioned, but only the Court of Appeal, or if the sentence is passed, then the only advice I can give, if you feel some unfairness in this aspect of justice, you probably need to make this judicial case as public as possible. You need to bring journalists to the court sittings, and then from my experience I can say that the judges are trying to do everything in accordance to the code and the norms of ethics. And the first question on civil servants. As a rule, any judge who we talk to during inspection, they provide written explanations, and they state that their rulings are legal, and they do not doubt whether these are substantiated or not. But there was a case when a judge, talking to the member of the commission, said that he was under the pressure. It was the judge from a regional district court of Kiev region, and he said that he was receiving instructions from one of the heads of the courts which are above him. We don't have such information. In other cases, it's difficult to know whether there was any pressure exercised or not. And what I would like to say, the courts are opposing. They do not, they're trying to avoid responsibility, and they burn the files. The commission requests the files, the cases of the file cases, and they just burn them, the documents. They just burn the documents, and this way they put.
They also exert influence on the members of the commission by telephone calls, and some talk about you shouldn't touch this or that judge. So what is the authority of this commission? We see, for instance, the case of Sadovnik. Nothing changes in the system. We are hearing this rather often here in Crisis Center. So what is the authority of this temporary commission where you are deputy head, and what is needed to be done today so that we can influence the judges? They are not covered by the law on lustration. What is the leverage that can be put upon them? I'll tell you again that the competence of the Commission is limited with a specific list of cases, mostly connected to EuroMaidan. For instance, if we had a complaint against the judge who considers Sadovnik's case, it is beyond our competence. You can only address the High Council of Justice or the High Qualification Commission, and we address those bodies so that they decide whether there are signs of disciplinary violation or the violation of oath in these cases. As far as the second question is concerned, well, we should try. We cannot say that nothing has changed after Maidan in the court system. Maybe these changes are just pinpointed, but they are. For instance, there is no one head over the entire court system, while previously this was done by the presidents. At the moment, there are several centers of influence that compete between themselves, and this is an additional element of the independence of judges. The second example is, I won't quote the surname here, but there's an information that one of the top officials of these current authorities tried to get access to the property of Viktor Yanukovych. We understand that all those properties were registered on many other people, and of course, and the parliament yesterday as if regulated this issue, but before that there was a competition for this property, and I have the information that this person has addressed the judges because there's no other way to transfer the rights, the property rights, but the judges said no, we won't do this, because we see that at the moment there's the process of lustration. No one wants to be responsible for this, because today you guarantee us some level of independence, but tomorrow we may be brought to responsibility. So I think that something is happening. Stepan, Berko, do you think the same that something has changed for better? These cases of those judges that you mentioned, what is the final result? Are they still working? Yes, the judges are working. They pass decisions, but as Markiyan said, they cannot be removed from their offices as they are protected by the Constitution and the law. And the only scare for them is that the Commission looks into those cases. We know cases when the judges see the results of the work of the Commission and are greatly disturbed about the possibility of the decision that they violated their oaths. Yes, with small steps, something is changing in the court system. And the recent Congress of Judges of Ukraine that happened just 2 weeks ago, the judges have shown that they still do not want to be independent and are not ready for the independence that there should be, but they start to understand that their independence is in fact their safety. They have reacted to the calls of the public not to elect to the High Council of Justice people with tainted reputation, and this may be a testimony to the fact that public pressure brings fruit. What about Mr. Nizhnuk? Well, in my case, there are no changes. Where is your case now? It is in the prosecutor's office, but I don't know where precisely, and the judge who has violated over 10 norms is still in place. There is a question from the audience. I am a lawyer. My question is to the Ozon representative. You are looking only into the cases of Bankova Street, from Bankova Street, or you can also be involved into other cases. For instance, I now carry several cases where we cannot reach any progress without public or mass media. Thank you very much for the question. This is a very important question, and at the moment, the Ozon Public Monitoring Group is concentrating its attention on the cases connected to EuroMaidan or separatism and terrorism in the East, if they are in an open court session. But we see in the future that we will determine several factors that we will monitor: public interest, public significance, precedential character, nature of them. We also had on the level of peaceful assemblies, we react to their requests that we attend those peaceful assemblies and see how law enforcers and participants in the peaceful assembly work. And potentially we will introduce this system for court sessions as well. But our resources, first of all, human resources, are very limited, so there's a correlation. The more people join Ozon Group, the more we can do in Kiev and in other cities and regions. There is another question from the audience. EuroMaidan source, and my question is to Markiyan Galabala. Do you know cases where the criminal proceedings were launched against the judges according to the article about knowingly unjust, illegal decision, Article 375 of the Criminal Code? As far as I know, there are 25 cases at the Prosecutor General's office, about the judges of the city of Kiev, about knowingly illegal decisions that pertain to EuroMaidan, but only one judge got the note of suspicion, summons of suspicion, and I don't know anything about the fate of other cases. So thank you. No, there is a question. There's still a question. Stepan Filipchuk, Ukrainian Word. I go to parliament and everywhere they say fight with corruption, different committees, leaders, and no one nowhere says about the enticing to corruption. You know, you go there for 20 times and they entice you to be corrupt. This is where the root of the matter is. For instance, I know the facts, and the police, and this was said at the parliament, that police is absolutely passive in investigations. You can apply to them. I have facts for 2 years, and the procurator's office writes 3 orders, protests to the police about their rejection to investigate cases, and still they do nothing. So the police do not comply with what prosecutor's office says. Thank you, thank you. So what about enticing corruption? A very good question, because you cannot regard court authority as isolated from other public institutions. For instance, the public cannot be black and judges can white, because the court system is just a component of the state authority system. They are boiling in the same cattle, and those tentacles are reaching out to all the law enforcement bodies, including the Ministry of Interior and courts. And of course, you cannot say that lawyers are absolutely clean, because they do take part in these corruption schemes. I also want to separately mention the Ministry of Interior. I agree with you wholeheartedly, especially in the context of investigation of criminal case that pertains to the killing of the Heavenly Hundred. Several examples. The Ministry of Interior does not comply with the order from the General Prosecutor's Office. They are sabotaging the investigation of the killing, of the murder of the Heavenly Hundred. Then the escape of Mr. Sadovnik. He was monitored by the Ministry of Interior, but we know that he escaped. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, activists and lawyers. Thank you for raising this issue. We will wait for results. Thank you, colleagues, and our next